Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on our Real Estate Roundtable of 2023. We had a similar event last year and it was a success. We had a great turnout and I hope everybody here enjoys themselves and has a good time and learns a few things today. I'd like to introduce the panel, starting with myself. I'm the moderator. My name is Zisckind. I'm one of the senior partners at Diamond & Diamond. You know us for our personal injury ads on TV, as well as our real estate department across Canada. We are one of the largest residential real estate firms in Canada, and we do upwards of about 400 transactions a month in each province. Today, we're going to be talking about the real estate industry, in particular about how the market has changed, especially with now higher interest rates, post-COVID era, and different strategies that our panelists use to be successful in this environment. So to start, I'm going to start from the closest to my right is Michael Klaus. He's one of our real estate lawyers at Diamond & Diamond and go-to knowledge guy when it comes to making sure your transaction is closed. Beside him, most of you know his face because if you haven't seen it on the side of a bus, it's Frank Leo, who's one of the more successful real estate agents in Ontario. Has a team of over 45 real estate professionals working with him. I'd like to welcome and thank you for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Next to Frank, we have Eric. I'm going to say this horribly. Zisckind, who is the CEO and founder of Pocketbroker, a online technology platform for agents to share their listings in a private portal that is not in the MLS sphere. You look for exclusive listings there, and the technology is great. We're going to talk about that a little bit later today. And to his right is Gary Ford, a sales coach and author of his book, Life is Sales. Gary, you want to put your book up there, show everybody?
There it is. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. So to start, I'm going to start off with Gary. I'm going to look to you. You're a sales coach. It's very different than most people in this room and online. Tell us how you got into this area of coaching.
I'm a sales coach and sales trainer, but I have a degree in psychology. So I worked at Canada Trust for many years, a regional VP of retail banking, and I did a lot of sales training because in the bank, in those days, sales was not an important factor for growing the business. It was more about just simply taking orders. And then I joined First Canadian Title, where I built a sales team across Canada, so I had to develop a sales training program as well as hire the right kind of people. And that's really what got me interested in the whole sales process. And that's when I wrote the book, Life is Sales, because life is sales. We all want to be more influential and persuasive with those people in our lives. And now I'm out, I do some coaching in the real estate and mortgage brokerage business, and I do a fair number of sales presentations to a variety of companies, getting to look at some of the basic, simple psychological reasons about why people say yes.
Excellent. So just to build on that, it's interesting when you say sales is life. I always thought, no matter what, role you're in, job, personal, whatever it is, I feel like 50% of your day is sales. Would you agree to that, and to what extent?
75%, maybe 80% is sales, because I have a daughter. She's a school teacher, and I asked her, "Are you in the sales business?" And she said, "No, I'm a teacher." And then we talked about it for a minute, and then she said, well, from an influence and persuasive technique, she said, well, my job really is to influence and persuade my students to pay attention in class, and then their whole life changes dramatically. So even she, as a school teacher, realizes that, in fact, life is sales. Raising your kids, if you don't think sales when raising your kids is a factor, have another look. It's everywhere.
I negotiate with my children all day, so I understand. When we talk about that and we move to a real estate forum, people are always trying to know, how can I be more successful? And I know, obviously, I would suggest to everybody taking a look at Gary's book, because I'm sure there's some great tips. But for today, if you had to label 2 characteristics or 2 habits that you would cultivate as an agent What would be the two most important ones or two or three?
The top two or three, there's so many. But clearly, sales is a very disciplined business. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate the discipline required to be a successful salesperson. And part of that discipline is follow-up. Research indicates that something like 40% of salespeople do not follow up after the first call, and yet they know that it takes 5 to 10 calls to make a sale, but they give up after the first call. And it's why they give up that's the key to their future success. And why do you think they give up? They're scared, they are afraid that someone might say no. And they take that rejection personally. And that little voice in their head says, "Whoa, this didn't work too well. Don't be doing that again." And so they don't. And then their business just simply does not move forward because they don't have that discipline in place. The other big one, that's a basic of the book, is salespeople have a lot of difficulty knowing how to ask for the business. They much prefer to hint at what it is they want instead. So that if the customer says no, they don't feel bad because they didn't ask for anything in the first place. They don't make any money, mind you, but they feel a lot better. Those are two biggies that I think impact the bulk of salespeople trying to make a living in a tough, competitive business.
Right. Frank, I
We
put
can
this.
leave. That's it.
That's it. We're
That's all
done.
needs to be said. You said it all.
Oh no, there's so much more here, Frank.
All right.
Frank, I'm going to pose the same question to you.
Yes.
You have such a large team, and I'm sure part and parcel of cultivating and training your team is also teaching them good habits.
Absolutely. Obviously, discipline of being consistent over time is what's going to set people apart. Anyone can do something great one day, but that's not enough. So you want to be focused on being consistent over time, and little things that you do every day will accumulate to greater things down the road in the future. So that's first of all. But from our perspective, it's very much a simple process. If you truly care about the people that you have in front of you and you want to help them, that's the perspective that we take. The goal is very simple. Help families, in our case it's a real estate business, help buyers and sellers achieve their real estate dreams, and you never have to worry about your own goals anymore. And so people are scared. They have questions. And so if we understand that they're going through a very traumatic time, because buying a home, selling a home, these are traumatic times. They're very stressful. Probably not many more situations in your life are as stressful as that. And if you can help them, hold their hand and guide them through those stressful times, they will never go with anyone else. And they're going to have questions. They're going to have concerns. They're going to face situations that they've never seen before. But we see them every day. By telling them what's coming, how to handle it, and how to move past it, then what you're doing is you're advising. So yes, it's sales, but it's more guiding people to where they need to be, where they're going, and helping them make a very potentially stressful situation very unstressful.
I'm sure you get a lot, Frank, I'm putting this back to you. When we talk about guiding people, I'm sure you get clients that are very resistant to, people that they meet, new real estate agents, trustworthy. What do you tell your agents on how to build that trust?
Well, the first thing that, the agents that we have are extremely knowledgeable, well-trained, and they're constantly learning what is going on in the world, what clients need, so that when they meet someone, they're not just winging it. They know exactly what they're going to ask and what the problems are out there, and they're going to help them. So, that trepidation occurs when people are not trusting who you are. But once they ask you a question or two and you give them some very good, solid answers and information, you know what happens at that point? They just start gushing and giving you all their questions and their concerns because they know that you're knowledgeable, that you've already at that point established that you care. And so that becomes very, very easy. So we're in helping people achieve their goals. I understand that there's a sales element to it. I'm not saying there is no sales, but it's through caring, curiosity, listening, and trying to help them through what they're going through.
Excellent. I want to move on to Eric. part and parcel of what's happened in the last few years, we've had pre-COVID, then we had COVID, and now we're in post-COVID. Eric, this question is for you. You're a technology disruptor. You've now come up with a program that has, changed certain aspects in the market. Can you tell me pre-COVID to COVID to now, not just in your product that you developed, but how has technology impacted the industry?
Well, technology has impacted the industry in a few ways. Number one is obviously pre-COVID, people are used to having a face-to-face business where book an appointment with an agent, they can go see Frank Leo, they can go see some other agent and talk to them. With sort of COVID, what ended up happening is we were forced to go digital. We were forced to reinvent ourselves as agents, as salespeople, as whatever profession you're in, and forced to sort of pivot into a different direction. Nowadays, one thing I'm realizing within many real estate agents they're struggling with is how to get people out to showings, because people are still stuck in the same mentality that, just send me the listing or send me whatever it is. And it's really impacting a lot of agents. They have greater sort of challenges bringing people into the office, I would say. And I hear these discussions happen more and more.
Okay. And, your platform, it really brings agents together. Can you tell me how that is going to either help the industry or hurt the industry in the long run?
Good question. So for those that don't know, my platform essentially is a B2B marketplace for off-market listings. So what does that mean? When you look at Realtor.ca, it's a B2C consumer play, meaning the agents go, they advertise listings, and those listings get promoted to consumers. Then consumers look at those listings, they call their agents, book appointments, other agents find them, so on. The difference with us, the way we sort of approached it, is we realized that real estate, over 80% of deals, especially in the GTA, are still done between two agents. So it's really a B2B play, even though we pretended to be more of a B2C play. So what we did is we created this marketplace where agents can come, advertise their listings, and promote them to other agents. And for the most part, majority of listings still belong on MLS because that's how you get maximum exposure. That's how you get maximum price. But there's a good portion of listings. Let's say, for example, Drake, a celebrity down the street who wants to sell his house. Is he going to want to put on MLS? Got to expose to everybody. Everybody sees the inside of their house, their personal belongings, everything else? No. They want to go through something where you avoid all the window shoppers and you only present it to relevant buyers. And that's what we created. So we created this portal where agents come on and can advertise listings to other agents. We have over 6,500 agents on the platform already since launching, and over $3 billion worth of real estate crossed. And this is why we caught the attention of major real estate board. At first, they were not sure what to do with us, but once they got to understand what we're about, that we're not a threat to their business, we're a complementary to what they're doing, they accepted us, and this is why we're at the latest Toronto conference, the Toronto Realtor Quest, which you guys were at too.
Yeah. And Mike, I'm bringing the legal aspect on here. You have a new technology and a new disruption. What, if any, legal ramifications do you see, or things that agents should watch out for with respect to not just the technology that Eric has brought to market, but that kind of field that what we see more and more online listings, et cetera?
Well, the legal profession has been grappling with a string of fraud for the last few years, and I think a lot of that has been brought about by the technology disruption. But I think real estate agents are a big part of the current fight against fraud, and the KYC that goes in with mortgage brokers as well. But what I think is really interesting about what I've already heard from the group here is that we're all in a different marketplace, lawyers included, for how we are trusted by our clients and how we're selling to our clients. And lawyers are no different. We have to make our clients feel that we're experts, and that we have their best interest in our mind, and we're not just off to our next meeting and off to our next client. And we're dealing that virtually now. 95% of, if not more, of my clients don't want to come and see me. They want to Zoom me, right? They want to sign with this electronic signature stuff, which is awesome. It's great. There's no waiting rooms. You get a meeting, you get it real quick. You log in from the comfort of your own home. But I'm curious, maybe with the panel we have here, to hear, are you guys experiencing that, particularly Frank, and how are you getting your people to know and give that sense of trust? How do you build that trust virtually, or are you doing something to kind of mitigate the Zoom and the lack of wanting to get out there and get out in the world that we kind of find ourselves in these days?
No, actually, Zoom has been, and technology has definitely helped us from, for us professionals. So we can meet up and have our meetings via Zoom, and that's very good because that's allowed us to meet more frequently and cover a larger area of ground. So Toronto can have a lot of traffic, so we can meet every week, 3-4 times without having to be in traffic for an hour and a half. So for professionally, it's good. But we have made it our objective to meet every client in person when you meet them. This is not, our industry, as much as you think you can buy a home online by looking at it, you cannot. You have to physically walk through the property. So we actually have the benefit in our organization to meet people face to face. And when you meet someone face to face, it is very different than online. They open up differently. There's body language, there's mannerisms that make it a more intimate meeting, and trust is built on a different way, and I think at a higher level if you can meet someone in person. And of course, the subsequent conversations can be, via text or email or Zoom, and then you already have that face-to-face relationship that you built, so you can, but meeting face-to-face, I think that's what saves real estate, because without that emotional and human connection, maybe we'd be out of business, right?
Right.
People need to be seeing homes personally, and we need to help them make the decisions, because although we are helping them find the home they want, we're always looking out for their best interest from an investment perspective. So a family will look for a home. We're advising them not on the home that they like, but on the investment that they're buying. So we'll say, maybe you like this home, but we have to mention to you that the train tracks down the road may hurt your investment. This home here is, the paint is not as nice, but you can paint it, and down the road, you don't have train tracks, it'll be a better investment. So we are, advisors in that regard.
Right.
But meeting face to face, there is no better.
Do you think the dynamic between realtor and lawyer is changing because of this? Do you think with lawyers having less and less face to face, is the realtor taking that position? Is it more important now than ever?
I think lawyers are very important, and lawyers are actually following through on the documentation that the realtor has done. If we do a good job of explaining the clauses, etc., then not to offend a good lawyer is going to just follow the process, because it's all there. When it's not done properly on our end, that's when a lawyer face-to-face is required, because then the agent hasn't done their job, and then there's questions and concerns. So if we are focused, and our organization is focused on the highest level of knowledge and attention to our product, to our properties, to our people, that we don't make those mistakes, as much as possible, knock on wood, we're working on it, but our focus is to constantly improve. So where a lot of people in the industry are out there meeting people and they're saying, well, I got a great personality and I got this, we are saying, okay, what do we need to know? How can we get better? And we're learning consistently so that we got it. So we're learning things so well that we can't make a mistake.
For sure.
Right? Not that we know it, but that we can't make it mistake.
For sure. I think on our side, more so than ever before, at least in my career, there's some reliance on the realtor that they've made that relationship with the client already. And when the realtor says, go talk to Mike, that relationship, I start with a leg up.
It's an extension. Yes.
They trust Frank, so by extension, they start out trusting me. And because they don't want to come and meet me, most clients these days, they don't want to meet me in person. They're very happy for the phone call. They're very happy for the video conference. So I think more so than ever, realtors, at least that's my opinion, have an even more important job building that trust so that they feel confident in the final product.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're in an interesting time. The first part I want to talk, and I want three of you to comment. We'll kind of start with you, Frank, and move to the right all the way to Gary. Over the last couple of years, everybody knows about the court decision when it comes to Realtor and Trev and the data. We now know that there's a variety of different avenues you can get data as a client. I want to know your comment. A, how does that change your approach? Two, how does that change the industry now and going forward? And what, if any, strategies are available that you would suggest, given now that this data is a lot more readily available, or, like I said, can be mined very easily?
Well, I think that the problem here that we have in society, and not just in real estate, but we'll talk about real estate right now, is that not that there's not enough data, that there's actually too much data. And unless someone is a professional who knows how to mine that data and what to look for, where to look for it, it can be very daunting, and I don't think anyone has the time to really do the proper analysis. I mean, the years of experience that we have can be cut through the details so that we know exactly what to tell people in terms of what's better and what's the better area, what's a better investment, how to do things. So, a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous is what I'm trying to say. It's there for them if they want to dig through it and they want to spend the time to learn what's good, what's not, neighborhoods, particular properties, legal, issues that could rise from, easements, etc. I mean, there's a lot involved in the process, but the information is there. And the problem is that with all that information, they're not guided. So what we have, an example, when we're talking to our clients is that, we say we're advertising your property everywhere, but the buyer who's going to buy your property may not be looking in your area. Say, what do you mean? We all want a property that's this big for this much money. We all start off that way, right? When we actually go out and look, we realize with that much money, we're getting a property that's this size. So they're not happy with that. So now where do you go from there? So our job is to say, well, listen, if you want a property like this for that much money, you might have to go just over here, 10 minutes away. Can I show you that property? They weren't looking there. But now we show them that property. We tell them about the neighborhood, how great it is. They see a property, they love it. They bought a great property instead of settling for something or finding something that wasn't there, and then they missed out on an opportunity because they didn't have that knowledge. So information is good. Being able to dissect it is the key.
Eric?
I like your points there.
Thank you.
I'll take a different angle. That's kind of what I was going to say, some of those points too. But at one point, before running this position, I had over 100 agents under me, and I was really following this case very closely. Tribal was going to court, and some of these other bodies were taken to court, and the fight over the sold data was going on for over a decade. And my conclusion from this whole thing was that if you're an agent and you're relying that your value, your almost entire value lies in you hoarding the sold data, you're going to be out of business really soon. Like that's a wrong approach. Kind of what Frank was saying, it comes down to more interpreting the data, making sense of it. And real estate is always local. Like, me taking data from somewhere, I don't know, London, Ontario, where I've been maybe 5 times in my life and be an agent and try to make sense of it is doing kind of a disservice to the client as far as I'm concerned. A lot of agents are so reliant on the data, and they think just because they have the data, they can go into any market and start trading real estate. Before this, when you were talking, you specialize in 2 markets, and that's Mississauga and Oakville primarily, right? No, sorry, which markets?
That wasn't me. I work Southern Ontario. I have people all over.
Apologies.
So I'm the wrong guy.
Misspoke here. But what I'm trying to say is you have a large team, so you're able to serve.
We have specialists in every
and you have
market.
specialists in every single thing.
Yeah.
But as a single agent, you don't have one agent running from Whitby down to London, Ontario, down to Barrie, right?
You can't do that job. People are doing it.
Exactly, and there's a lot of people doing that, and I think because they have the data. Because that's the key differentiator. And where I see technology, when I see all of this going, you look at the States. The sold data has been around for 25 years in the States, and nothing's changed. Agents are still making money, brokerages are doing well, lawyers are doing well, technology companies are doing very, very well in the States. So the sold data is the wrong thing. It's the wrong discussion to have, I think. I think there's a lot of fight for it because we think we agents own it. And once again, I'm a former agent, and I strongly believe that if you're relying solely on the sold data, it's just the wrong approach to take overall, and you should be relying on more expertise, whether local or someone like yourself that has a bigger team that can go to different areas.
And before Gary responds, it's interesting because I'm a horrible example of that. I mean, I'm not an agent, and I look on Realtor and all these sites all the time to get data. And it's funny, what Frank was saying is I have this kind of predetermined look of where I want to live and what kind of house I want. And I just look for the sake of looking, and I assume based on what I'm picking and the parameters I'm picking that I know what I'm talking about. So I use a lot of averages. If I said I'm the average guy, I'm no better or no worse. And if I'm the average guy, there's a whole bunch of average guys that are doing the same thing, right? So, Gary, commenting on that building on that, how do you deal with a guy like me, the average guy, right? When you're talking about this, when you have that data out there, where my first answer may be, yeah, but I can look at the data myself. I'm smart enough.
There's two things that every single customer wants to know about you if you're selling them anything. And that is, do they know what they're talking about? Are they knowledgeable? Are they an expert? And are they telling me the truth? And I think the more information that a client has just increases the odds of you as a professional being able to showcase your value of knowledge and expertise in the marketplace to bring meaning to all of this jumble of information that the general consumer has. In any business, people are still going online and discovering all kinds of stuff. My wife buys stuff online all the time, and she sends it back. It's terrible. So, but as soon as you get an expert in there who knows the marketplace and realizes that you know a lot of stuff about what's going on, and then is able to bring some meaning to that for you personally, then all of a sudden your credibility, which is really critical in any business, your credibility just goes like this. And then you have a totally different kind of a conversation with that client that's going to lead to probably a very successful transaction for both parties. So I think it's great as long as they're prepared and ready to look and discuss that particular marketplace that that client's talking about. And that's the homework. And it's a lot of homework.
Right. On the basis of technology, and I want to add this in and kind of pose a tough question to all of you again, is, so we've seen, obviously we talked about this, the soul mining data. And we go back to our pre-COVID strategy, what most agents were doing. Then we had COVID, and now we're kind of back here. So in terms of strategies, pre-COVID versus post-COVID, I want you guys to comment on, what things have changed now that we're in an era of high interest rates. We're in, maybe a tip or starting to be of a recession. This is something that many agents in this industry have never seen. I mean, as long as I can remember for the past, and I'm probably wrong, and I'm just taking a stab at this, but at least 15 years of an upward appreciation market. 96, right? Okay, so that's right. So I'm close enough. Point being is that many people don't know what it's like to work in this type of environment. Now, to be fair, we were talking about it before, and there's still a supply issue that is kept the demand up and the prices high. But that's not going to be forever. So, 2 points that I want to touch is, now post-COVID, given the situation that we're in, what are some strategies that you would recommend to agents out there, one? And two, with the technology, knowing what we know now, how do you think technology is going to affect the way we do business going forward? And I'm just going to put a asterisk there, AI.
Ooh. I think in the last few years, for sure, agents have had a different approach to doing business than they did prior to the run-up in prices, and they have forgotten many of the basics of how to be disciplined in developing their business. And I think that's a factor. And as far as I can see at the moment, I think many agents, still 80% of the business is done by 20% of the agents. And that's been the same for quite a while. So the challenge for them is, how do I find my niche? How do I continue to be in the marketplace and having an impact? And cold calls used to be a pretty popular item many, many years ago, but it died off when they didn't have to do it. And so they didn't like it. Nobody likes cold calls. But they're starting to come back, I'm finding. And one of the things I've noticed, on cold calls especially, I think cold calls are still an important part of growing your business, period. The different objective is when someone knocks on my door, they want to do a free evaluation of my house. Is that what I want? No. The objective, in my view, is to get inside the house. That should be their number one objective. So how can I get inside my house? What's important to me as a potential client? And that is, And they're all just like you. They want to know what's going on in the marketplace. And they're looking for data online, but they also want to hear from a professional. So if they change their opening lines to, I work in this marketplace, some interesting things are happening, you have, and this is called a check to proceed, you have 5 minutes for me to just let you know what's happening here. And they will get inside that house a lot more often than they do by saying, would you like a free evaluation? Because the default answer to that is no. And then they're done. And then they never ever follow up with me again. Notwithstanding, I want to know all that stuff. But I'm not about to open up about a free evaluation because I know where it's going to go and I don't want that. But I'd like to know some information, which then allows us to have a different kind of a conversation and allows then for me to showcase some true value that might be what I'm looking for in that transaction.
Okay. And then the last comment again, technology and AI. Life is sales.
I think we're all in big business when it comes to AI. But in my view, bottom line is face-to-face in the real estate business especially is always going to be a factor. It's a huge investment. They're making a giant decision. They look at the house. They still need that professional perspective on the investment aspect of it. What are some of the issues with this house that they may not know because they get carried away with the appearance of it rather than the house itself. So they need a professional. Face-to-face is the way you build credibility, the way you build that trust. And I don't care. I think AI is going to be impacting the business for sure, but I still believe that if the agent can be out face-to-face with that client, they're going to make progress in their business, for sure.
Perfect.
That's going to be a long time before that goes away, if ever.
Right. Eric, post-COVID strategy and AI.
I'll take the stab at the AI question because it might be a longer answer a little bit here. So, start off with a story. My grandma used to say, back in Poland, where I'm from, in the 1950s when TVs first came out, my grandma would get really upset if the living room wasn't clean before they turned on the TV because they used to think that from the TV they can see into your living room and see whether the house is clean or not. And I think that's where AI is right now. Agents whoever either fears it or embraces it. And the decision is us. The decision is on us and on how we want to view it, whether it's something that can complement our business, whether it's something that can complement our lives, or it's something that is going to make us irrelevant. And I think everybody on a personal level makes a decision at one point. Eventually, with enough time, everybody's going to come on board with AI. I think agents, real estate boards, clients, everybody's going to be kind of on board. And we, as a company, a Broker Pocket, are already embracing it. One of the stuff that we're trying to create, which is industry leading, and nobody has, and it's the first time we're sort of announcing it in a public setting, is, as agents, one of the most time-consuming and frustrating things to do is when you're typing up a listing, is to type up the description. Sometimes when you have a lot of listings, they're very similar, especially if it's cookie cutter condo and they're all the same. There's only so many ways you can say fabulous view, great amenities, and basically whatnot. Imagine you had a button that once you fill out the listing, you click a button and it auto generates for you the description. And if you don't like that one, you click it again, it changes for you again. That will save a lot of time, a lot of deal administrator, a lot of spelling mistakes. And it can improve everybody's lives, something like this, right? So we have to look at AI through a lens that it's coming and it's going to stay. I don't think AI is something it's like Bitcoin might come, might not. It's something that's going to definitely stay for sure. I think a lot of companies, larger corporations, are already starting to realize that they're starting to change their mandates, their product lines, what they kind of see, who they're hiring. And it's something that probably if you have kids, I'll push towards. If I can give some recommendation in this room.
Frank, pre-COVID versus post-COVID, and then AI.
Well, when I started, I still have my original chisel and hammer that I did my original offers on. So, I'm just setting my parameters. So AI, you have to embrace it. It's a fantastic tool. and it's going to make our job easier, providing more information out there. And as Google revolutionized, information and access to information, my father-in-law says, "Oh, you got all the answers. It's in there." Yes, we do. How does that happen? I mean, so, encyclopedia salespeople are out of business because we have it in our pocket. So AI is a great tool. It's going to help us in a lot of things, but this is a people business. It's an emotional business, and that's what we have to continue to excel in. And when I was doing my offers with my chisel and hammer, I could only do, if I had a great year, like 10, 12, it would be crazy amounts of business in a year. Now I do more than that, a day or 2 days. So, it allows more capacity. So a lot of things will be taken care of that don't need to be done, but the most important things that do, then they're taken care of. Now, COVID didn't change anything, brought us back to where we should be. When the market was plugging away and everything else and people didn't have any problems, well, here, sign here, just see this property and that's it. We were order takers. Ridiculous. Terrible. These are decisions that are life-altering, probably the largest financial decisions that people make in their lives. What we realize is that people had fears, had concerns. There was a lot going on in their lives. And at that time over there, we were just calling people, say, "How are you? Is there anything we can do for you? Is there anything we can help you with?" And take them through that difficult time. And that taught us to once again, focus on what's most important. It's caring about the people, the families, individuals. The sales will come, but the caring is what is the essence of our business. And if you don't have that, you have no business.
Got it.
And we stick to that today. That's a very important part of what we do.
Thank you, Frank. I'm going to stick with you, Frank. It's funny. We walked into this room and everybody, the first thing they says, "Frank, nice to meet you. I've seen you on about 20 buses across the city in the last hour." So, I get this question a lot. Diamond is a big marketer, and it's the same idea. How do you decide how to market? How do you decide what is successful? I can tell you from our history, and I'm a bit younger, but people I say, how did you start marketing? And our answer is we kind of threw darts at the wall and saw which ones kind of stayed there and took off the ones that didn't, right? But it's gotten a lot more sophisticated since then. But I'd like to hear from you, your experience, and how you figure it out.
Well, necessity to, be top of mind is key for marketing. So that's the whole thing. So I'm going to tell you something maybe that you've never heard. I'm going to share it with everyone. Just keep it in this room, please. Only 50% of the marketing that I do works.
What's 50%?
I just wish I knew what 50%. Right? All right. So that's the humorous part of it. But it's actually true. And so what I mean by that is this, is that in this room, I'm hoping that everybody would have seen my marketing. But what is not the same is what marketing they will see. What you will see is a certain amount, and someone else may see something different, but they will all know what we do. And so that's the secret to marketing, is trying to reach everyone and not just one person. So it's not one vertical we do. We have a 360-degree marketing campaign, and because of that, I know that I'm going to be hitting 99.9% of people out there, and that's what the goal is. So top of mind, and then once you have the opportunity to talk to that person, then you better be good at what you do. And our focus is making sure that we know what is the top of mind for the client today, because we all today are swimming in the same pool of challenges, concerns, and questions. So the clients are all coming with the same question. If we know the answers, then what's your problem? Here's the answer. We know it already, right? So that's what it's all about. So marketing, top of mind, and yes, you do a good job, and I hope that you continue to do yours, because marketing is what is good in any industry. If people don't know what you do, then you're not doing it, are you?
Right. It's interesting. I have a lot of colleagues and people who try to take a stab. And when I was growing up, it was we'd see somebody with a bench ad or somebody with one bus ad. And I always found it as I got older, I'm like, I don't know if it does much, but I'm not in the real estate industry. So, my question to you is, you're a new agent and you're looking to market. Is it worth doing the one?
The key is to get out there. And if that's going to help you get out there, yes, marketing is always good. Is that the only thing you should be doing? Of course not. You have to get out there and talk to people and, help them with whatever is on their minds and ailing them and be a resource. You have to give deposits of value before you get anything back. If you're not in contact with anyone, Gary, if you don't talk to anyone, odds of selling anything is low, eh? All right, there you go. You got to circulate to percolate. If you're not out there in contact with people, and however you get there. So I had a question by a gentleman earlier today and says, what's the secret thing that works? And what I found the answer is whatever you're doing that works, do more of that first. Get that to go at full speed. Get that plate spinning 100%. Once you have that, then you dabble somewhere else. But you have to max out on what's working for you. And we're all different. So we like to do different things. So if someone likes to call and they have success, they should call more. If I don't like to call and start doing what he does, it's not going to work for me. So you got to do what you like, do more of that to the maximum. Once you have that, keep that going, then try something else and find something else, and then you build it up. And eventually you have a lot of things going at once, like I have and many organizations like yourselves have as well.
Something else I'll maybe add to it, marketing has a lot to do with consistency. I think both of you guys will sort of agree, because the moment you would pull all your ads down, people think you went out of business or something bad happens to you. So that's why I found a lot of agents came, when they got into this business, they came with some marketing dollars, but they were only willing to commit it for 2 or 3 months. And I would say, no, it takes 6 months at minimum to get maybe your first call.
Correct.
Before people registers inside their head. It takes a lot of repeat, and you got to be able to keep it up for a long period of time. Because a lot of agents go out there, spend all this money, and then they don't get a result, so they cut it off completely. And I'm like, you're doing yourself a huge disservice as an agent and potentially damaging your own reputation by doing so. You guys obviously have been in the business a long time, and you can maintain these budgets. So I think anybody getting in, like I said, the offline efforts, the sales, and marketing kind of complements that, and it works really well sort of in conjunction.
Excellent. Gary, you want to just comment on the conversation in terms of marketing and sales?
Marketing gets someone's attention, and that's the big factor of marketing. And then the follow-up, the relationship building, because there's already a name awareness, if you will, that allows you perhaps an inside track. And that's important versus calling up and they don't know who you are. These days, the immediate response is it's a fraud situation.
Yeah.
And so, the marketing, but not everybody can pop it. So you have to come up with alternative strategies that still allow you to make your name in the marketplace. Maybe it's a smaller marketplace that you focus on instead of a bigger one. But certainly marketing does provide name recognition, and along with that is associated trust and knowledge, which allows then you to open up a door that marketing is really designed to do.
Excellent. We heard a lot today from, I think, everybody on this panel in terms of, trust and getting to know your client and face-to-face meetings and so on. Part of marketing is obviously not just getting your message across. And I think that as the industry gets tougher, people may explore those avenues more and more. As we see those avenues getting explored more, also comes challenges with that. Mike, some legal complexities with respect to marketing, mass marketing, when you're choosing to do something, what issues do you see arise?
Well, I think a big issue, especially if you're a new agent, is you're going to be holding yourselves out as experts. So you need to back that up. And if you need to back that up, you need allies. You're going to start off. You don't already have a lawyer. You need to make friends with a lawyer. Make friends with one of the diamond lawyers, if I can try to pitch us for a second. But I can't tell you the number of times I've had clients that come to me, and by the time they get to the lawyer in the process, they're already dissatisfied with their agent. And it's nothing that, we haven't even started with them, but they're dissatisfied because they've had too many surprises in the process. They weren't given the guidance as to what to expect as the process evolved, be it through, when they need to start getting their mortgage ready. Maybe they don't even know land transfer tax exists. They didn't realize they needed their lawyer years and years ago, pre-COVID, at a string of a few agents, and we wouldn't get their deal till a week before it was closed. And with first-time home buyers, they don't know better, right? So if you're going to hold yourself out as an expert, you need to either be the expert or have an alliance of people you can rely on to make sure that you can get them where they need to be. And when they finally finish that deal, they trust you and they would come back to you, right? And I think, as a lawyer, I'm a small part of that puzzle. I think, there's going to be some, some questions, some homework that, you're going to bounce off lawyers. I don't charge agents. I know lots of real estate lawyers won't do that. You should be using your real estate lawyers. Don't be shy. Ask questions. Ask questions from your mortgage contacts. Be the expert that can tell them how they've heard the market is going one way or another, how the process will go at the law firm. Like if you're using a lawyer, if you're using Diamond and Diamond, how is Diamond and Diamond's process work? I think you should know that. And obviously I'm here to tell you. I'm happy to tell you. And I happen to think we got the best process, of course. And I do believe that. You want to be selling them, and this is the humble real estate lawyer talking. And I'm not a real estate agent, but I've had real estate agents, right? I'm a real estate lawyer who knows I need an agent. Back to that discussion before, I know I can go online just like right? But I know I need an agent because there's value beyond just the statistics and what I can get online. So, what I as even a customer of the realtor want to know is what's the next step? What am I doing? When I go to this guy, what happens, right? What is the appraisal guy going to be looking for? What is the lawyer going to ask me for? Maybe you can send the lawyer some stuff ahead of time so they don't get asked. Like, how can you integrate with your contact points for the client to get to the end result? And if the client experience is as smooth as possible, and that's what we're focused on as much as we possibly can be at Diamond and Diamond, then I think they're coming back to you, and I think they're coming back to me. So I guess maybe that's not the legal answer for risks with advertising, but that is the biggest risk I think realtors have, right? You hold yourself out as an expert, and as Frank and the panel has said, they're relying on you. They're relying on you for the biggest purchase they will make in their life over and over again. And you need to know your stuff.
Gary, you talk about psychology. It's your expertise. If you had to pick one psychological trait that makes a successful agent.
Well, there is one. One major one.
Enlighten us.
And that's in any sales job. And that is a person with an optimistic bent is far, far more successful in any sales-related business where relationships count than someone who has a pessimistic bent. Not necessarily a pessimism, but a bent that way. And it's only because the optimistic person can take no, not as a personal rejection, but as a learning opportunity. The person with that pessimistic bent takes no personally, as personal rejection. And therefore, they change their approach to customers and to developing business, and before long, they're out of business. Whereas the person, even with a slight optimistic bent, stays in business a lot longer and is a lot more successful, and there is tons of research exactly around these two qualities. It's amazing.
Interesting.
And yet, people who hire rarely look at that component when they're hiring someone.
Okay, so here's a tough one. I'm an employer and I'm looking for somebody. Are you optimistic? Everyone's going to say yes. What's a good way to...
I have a test.
Enlighten us, please.
Well, there's tests all over the place that will give you a tendency. But I have a 3-word test. You can show somebody and you can say, what does this say? And someone will say this, and someone will say this, even though, because the letters are all run together. And, 70% of the time, someone will read it this way, and that's an optimistic perspective of reading the same bunch of letters, and someone else who is more of a pessimistic bent will read it a different way.
I want to take a stab at that question too, because we interview a lot of people. When both from the real estate and the tech side. So the way I actually strongly believe.
You try that little test?
I do something else. So for me, it's a simple question: is the world a good place or a bad place? Tells me everything.
Yeah.
It tells me everything I need to know about the individual, because the world is exactly what you think it is. And if you say it's a bad place, it's full of bad people trying to do this, and that's your framework. That's
Yeah.
what you're going to think, and that's what you're bringing to my office, and that's how you're going to handle yourself in the field. That's everything. If you see the world's a good place, it's full of good people, you're going to attract that energy towards you. So,
And the pessimist is a natural whiner as
Yeah.
well,
Right.
blaming everybody else for everything. And they're really a boon to your office environment.
big time.
Right.
They're wonderful.
It's funny because I was asking, but Frank, I want to hear from you on this one. A psychological trait that you look for in your agents.
Listen, it's good. We look for people who want to help people. I mean, empathy is one that we look for. Care. I mean, you want to do that, and obviously, optimism. I never thought of that really specifically. We have some questions, and just we want to find someone who has a little bit of grit. That they're willing to do. There's two fundamental things. There's effort, and then there's skill, right? And effort is somebody who's going to continue to be consistent in doing the things they want to do. So they have that tenacity, a little bit of tenacity. And I guess it's because of optimism that they continue. So, I mean, these are all blurred lines.
Right.
That is important. And if someone is caring, then that's the person we want, because we know that if we care for enough people, it's going to come back.
Right. So those are good psychological traits. So I want to turn the question around and start off with Frank again. If you had to pick an agent on your team, like a new agent on your team, based on one thing that you're going to teach them, what would it be?
One thing that we're going to teach them.
So not a characteristic that they already have, but you got to teach them only one and one thing only. What are you teaching them?
Well, we're teaching them how to answer questions, how to respond to people. The exact wording is very important. It's not what you say, but what's received from what you say. And that's very different. Sometimes people say, I said that, and they never actually said what the person has received. So the focus should be always on making sure that you deliver the message that you intend on delivering. And that's a very a skill that has to be developed. This doesn't happen without some experience.
It's true. I'm still trying to figure out how to talk to my children.
The other thing that we didn't mention that was really a big part of your data and information, I never had an opportunity to quite say it.
Sure.
But when you have the data, it's wonderful. You have to be able to dissect it. But the ability to negotiate, there's a skill involved in that is extremely important. And poor negotiation has led to some very bad deals. And we love it when the other person on the other side is not a good negotiator, because our clients are just so happy with everything. So, that is something you have to, again, work on developing. And, you can analyze the data, but if you can't negotiate the best terms, you're still going to fall behind.
Excellent. Eric, I'm going to go to you.
Sure.
One thing you're teaching, I know you had a brokerage, but if one thing you could teach a new agent, you only have one thing to teach them, what are you teaching them?
An agent or an employee?
An agent in this particular situation.
Well, I was thinking more from an employee point of view, because I shifted my mindset slightly. From an agent point of view, I would say don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's too many people try to get into this space and try to bring some sort of new thing to it. It's already been said and done. There's so many, the old school proven true works really well. There's a reason why you sit down watch a panel, it's the same answer. Sometimes these real estate panels get a lot of times boring because it's the same answer.
Not this one, though.
Not this one. No, but it's not a purely real estate panel, but the answers are boring because it's repetitive. It's the same advice over and over. Don't go out there and try to find shortcuts. So many people try to find shortcuts. You got to put in the hours. You got to put in your 10,000 hours to become an expert at anything. If it's law, real estate, tech, it doesn't matter. Sales, it doesn't matter what it is. You got to put in the work. And I think this new generation of the younger agents coming in are so used to, attention span is this much, and they're used to finding shortcuts, looking for shortcuts and for cheat codes and then bypass systems. And then, your word is everything you have in this business, right? Like your ethics, your thing, you never want to give that up, because I've seen people do, unethical stuff, agents over to get a $10,000 commission check. And, ultimately you got to live with that, right? And it's a lot, and it's your reputation, and don't ever sell yourself short. I guess the way I see it is, OREA sells it as a career, the media sells it as a career. OREA sells it as like a fancy job, but really it's a business. That's what people don't realize. It's like the moment you get licensed, you literally have a storefront on you. And you got to operate a storefront. You got to think about marketing. You got to think about legal. You got to think about finances. You got to think about every single thing, because everything is a reflection of how you do it. It's very easy. It takes years. It's very hard to build a reputation. It takes years to build a reputation, and suspicion in seconds to destroy it. And we all know agents who destroy their reputation over stupid things.
Gary, one thing you're going to teach.
A big one for me would be learn how to ask open questions instead of closed, focused questions where the customer can only say yes or no. And then learn to keep your mouth shut. And the whole idea is to encourage your client to talk. The more they talk, the more they appreciate you, the more they trust you, the more they see you as knowledgeable, even though they're doing the talking. And yet, most people think that talking to them and telling them stuff is convincing them. That's not how it works. So moving from a closed focused question of a yes or no answer to an open one is really a skill. And then wait and let them tell you. And then instead of another question, just restate something that they said and they'll tell you a whole bunch more about that. It's a simple little tool, and yet most people are like putting a spotlight in somebody's face and grilling them with a bunch of questions, and it's not a conversation. It's an interrogation. And it's a big difference in that credibility component between you and your client. So, and it's not easy to learn. Natural tendency to want to talk plenty.
I'm sure on this panel it's very hard.
Oh, we're good at it. We're really good at it up here.
I want to open up the questions first to people in the room live. Does anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask any of the panelists here?
Can I just mention one thing? I think the elephant in the room was the title of the meeting here was how high interest rates can offer opportunities to agents out there. Mm-hmm. And so how they can increase your business. And I look at it as a very much a huge opportunity. The worst thing that could happen to us in our business is that the world is a calm place and there's nothing happening and there's no reason for anyone to do anything. That's the worst scenario. But in a scenario where we have a pending recession potentially, we have high interest rates, and people and agents are scattering all over, they're concerned, they're scared. Why? Because they fear the situation instead of embrace the opportunity to help people. Because you know what? Almost everyone has a mortgage. Almost everyone has a mortgage they have to renew in less than 5 years, because that's the longest term that we have. Now, if you're talking to people, you should reach out to them and say, hey, your mortgage, how you doing? It's coming up in 3 years. I know you're okay now. Do you know what's coming up? Are you scared? Is everything okay? Just want to give you a heads up. Things might change. And I know you're not doing anything right now. I don't want you to do anything. I'm just, if you have any questions, I'm here for you, because the rates are this much now. They're going to cost you a little bit more. Maybe you should get some information. And before that happens, if you need any help on strategizing on how to best work your way through it, we're here for you. It's an opportunity to connect with people on something that they don't know is going to hit them. But if you reach out and you give them that information and you help them, give them options, just something to think about, is that going to give them more stress or less stress? Are they going to remember you? What did it cost you? Nothing. 5 minutes of your time. You can contact each and every one of your clients, all your friends and people. This is an opportunity to grow your business. That's what happened in COVID. Talk to people, care about them. It's not about a transaction. It's about a relationship. And if they're ever going to do anything, they're going to do it with the person that was there for them when they needed them. So they need us, and we don't get anything from it right now, but we're here to help. And if you have any other questions, contact me anytime. That's what we're here to do, is help. That's how you increase your business.
That's cold calls. Warm calls, I guess we'll call them.
That's caring calls. That's
Caring
coming
calls.
love.
Care calls.
Love.
Cold caring.
Okay. Eric, you want to reply, rebut, or expand on what the two?
I agree with everything you said. So I'm good.
Okay. Again, questions here, guys.
I have a question. And I kind of have my own answer to this. I'm a realtor, but I just want to get everyone's opinion. But it's with AI moving forward. There can come a time where you could probably say, okay, Google, or hey, what's the value of this house going to be? And it's going to be able to pull everything together and give you a price. And I know people need to see the house in person, but I mean, we do have Matterport, we have 3D stuff. Like, how do you see it? Like, it probably will change the business, but how do you see that? Do you see that more in a positive way or in a negative way? I know we've talked about we've talked about still being face to face, but like, what are your takes on maybe something like that?
I'll take a stab at that.
Yeah.
So Zillow in the States has been very close to doing that already for 15 years with their Zestimate. So for those that don't know, Zillow is the realtor, a private version of a website of that catalogs every house in the United States. Has over 300 homes for sale. Listed on their website. Whether it's for sale or not, it has the exact price, the value of that house, and it uses 900 points of interest to generate sort of this thing. It didn't disrupt the states and didn't do much. It educated sellers and buyers more what a potential market it sort of did, and it became sort of a point of congestion especially when it sort of came out. But you have to remember, ultimately, us agents, we're selling houses. The consumers are buying homes. It's two different things. Technology was said on the panel by someone here before. Technology will never replace that, even though I am from the tech side. Buying a house, when I was buying my own house, when I had my brokerage, everything, it was an emotional process for me. Selling my previous house was emotional because it's not a house, it's a home. There's a difference between a house and a home. And a lot of people in tech seem to sort of miss that or seem to overshoot that or oversimplify that. Because it's a very emotional process, and it's somewhere where you raise a family. It's somewhere thing, and for us to say, oh, this is the value, and I'm going to use this robot to sell this house or whatever. We're really far away from that. It's just the same way we're far away from dating a robot. You can make it something resemble something else, but no, thank you. You know what I mean? That's my answer.
The other thing about real estate that has to be made, I mean, when you have a manufacturing process of TVs, phones, water bottles, whatever it may be, it is the exact same item. So therefore, it's easy to set a value to it. A property that was built in 1960 and another property that was built in 1960 on the same street can be totally day and night. The condition, the upgrades, the additions, the lack thereof. So they're not the same item, and the computer will say they're the same price because they don't know anything. So, it does say a general price point, and everyone I've met has a price for a property. I've never heard it. I know that property over there. Everybody has a price. What's the right price? Ultimately, the right price is what informed, willing buyer is willing to pay. And if you can find more buyers that are informed and more willing to pay, you'll get more money than if you have less buyers, because that's the bottom line. And being able to create that accurate information, and the only way you're doing it is by seeing the property, seeing if it fits. I mean, renovations in a home can be $300,000. You don't see that from the outside. So, I mean, AI has a place and is wonderful to set parameters, and we're going to use it to write our ads and do everything else. And it's going to be part of what we do. I watch the Jetsons. I know how it works. Make me a sandwich. Fantastic. This is all going to be great. But I think that as long as there's humans involved in the process of the equation of it, our business is guaranteed to have a need for realtors.
I think also there's a level of accountability. I haven't spoken much, and I think Mike will tell you as well. People want to know that they have somebody to blame when things go bad. From a legal perspective, it's horrible to say, but my answer, I'll give you a perfect story. People are like, I'm going to go to Turkey to get my hair done, and my answer is, who are you going to sue if it goes wrong? Same with AI. I think people want a level of accountability that you get with a person that will be an expert, I think it's going to be very hard for people to completely trust what an AI number would be. And I think that's not just on a social level, but also on a legal level as well.
They can verify it with the realtor.
Right.
Of course.
If I can say one thing, I think it's got a lot of proving to do before you're going to have the liability as a realtor. So you can't back off and say, oh, my AI wrote the listing, and it put in that there was a laneway. It turned out there wasn't a laneway or something. That's not a defense, and the court's not going to let you go with that one. So it's got a lot of proving, if I was an agent, to do to me before I'm sticking my license, my liability on everything it sets out. Sure, first draft, saves you the time of getting that going. But if you're a new agent, especially, you got to be going through that stuff. You have all your responsibility you did before AI. So don't sit back. I know there's the temptation. Even in the legal profession, we're seeing the temptation, right? Ask ChatGPT to write my next contract for me. It'd be pretty good. Then I can watch the game. But, it makes a ton of errors. It's terrible for the legal world. It's awful. And I'm sure it's awful for you guys in the realtor world. It's going to take a long time before I would put any trust in it. And I think that would be wise for you to not stake your license on that.
I think also a comment to be made is emotional experience. I think we kind of disvalue the fact that everybody in this room and online make decisions based on past experiences that have helped them learn and grow. It's similar to sports. And I tell this to my daughters who play basketball all the time. And I said, you're going to make a certain move, and it doesn't work the first time, doesn't work the second time. It's like banging your head into a wall and not learning, right? And I think that as humans, we have that ability to say, look, from my experience, what I've seen, based on my emotional outtakes on, what I've gone through over the past 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years of doing this, there's considerations that AI cannot do. Because until they can create emotion, and just like Frank said, and the funniest story in the world, when I was laughing in my head, is when my mother was selling her house and they weren't getting the price that she thought because how much money she spent on her pink 1980 Miami Vice rugs, right? It was an emotional decision attached to it. So AI can tell you, yeah, this is the number I came up with. It ain't going to tell you how beautiful those floors are. It isn't going to tell you, the love and the structure of, what the bones are like. And sometimes that is worth a hell of a lot more than just statistical data.
Well said.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh,
Another question, just a comment, Bill, to your point, to some of your points, though. Moving forward with AI, I'm a mortgage broker. Lawyers are now using DocuSign or what have you. We're completely removing the human element piece of it. We talk about, I know Frank, and I've known each other for a long time. And with the DocuSign and with the AI and what you're trying to do, and I agree with all that, with the Gen Z and the millennials coming up, that human element, if we don't talk about it more, if we don't spread the news more about it, that's going to go away. So we can continue to talk about it, but if AI continues to come into the picture and lawyers are using DocuSign, how many of you folks are seeing your customers day to day?
Sorry, I'll summarize the question anyways. It's kind of, lawyers in a way, I think you would agree, are kind of the first cohort of the trio of the mortgage agent, mortgage broker, and then the lawyer to close the deal. Lawyers are more and more moving towards very impersonal forms of signing that have been made permissible by Law Society of Ontario. My initial comment would right away be, if you're going to a lawyer who's signing through DocuSign over the phone or something like that, change lawyers. Like, I can't tell you how many files we've had where everything is super kosher, everything's Gucci. Again, statistically, by the book on writing, everything in the system looks good. And then we get on our video call. We use a piece of software similar to Zoom. And we get on the video call and can start chatting about what their plans are with the property while we're getting everything set up. and I start getting little tidbits of more information that maybe doesn't come out in the APS. Maybe there's more information what they're planning to do with the property. Or maybe they got more questions about their mortgage.
Or maybe they're dressing up as their husband, as we saw.
Yeah, or they're signing from Thailand and they're not who they said they were. But you know, and the know your client stuff is a top of mind for lawyers, so that's super important. But for us, but as agents, I think that human component, they get more out of a lawyer signing meeting that has nothing to do with the paperwork they're signing. I don't think I've ever had a client sign the paperwork and say, geez, Mike, I'm glad you really explained that affidavit to me. I'm better off for it. That's never happened. They get over the meeting and they say, you know, if they get anything from it, it's they're interested in what my opinion is on the current market. They're interested in what my opinion is on, you know, the state of the house, or you know, they want to see what I'm seeing out there. What are the problems that I've been experiencing or having other clients experiencing? And they want that, and you know, that's something I can offer. I think real estate agents, you guys, and mortgage brokers, you guys offer a much more direct, you know, framework for those types of discussions, but it's another facet for the client to get some love out of it.
I think what Anthony is facing there is an unfortunate aspect, and I understand where he's coming from because he's very much of the, since I've known you, about client care and building a relationship going forward. Unfortunately, your product is not perceived as being very different from other products. It's, you know, what's the number? Here it is, bang, bang, sign. So that necessity for the client to have a relationship with the mortgage broker is greatly diminished. So AI, I think, may hurt your industry because the perception is that a mortgage is a mortgage is a mortgage. Just give me the rates and the numbers. Houses are different. Houses have to be seen, and so we have to have that relationship, and they're much more emotional. The mortgage is a little bit less, and so there's going to be different industries that are going to be taking a hit from that perspective. What I find very interesting is this: from the technology that we have today, we have had situations where people have been very much one way by text, email, you know, and just those formats, very strong, very stern, very bang, bang. You meet them in person, totally different people. They're so, you know, calm, nice, quiet. Online, they're like tyrants. It's like, wow. So
Google reviews.
We have to meet people in person in our industry. But yes, any industry that can be perceived as, you know, having the same product as another one is going to be a challenge.
I want to comment on Anthony's as well, and I think, you know, the inevitability, and although unfortunate, it's interesting because somebody called me this week about a question. It was a client that was referred to me, and they were worried about their mortgage coming up. They sold their house. I said, well, who was the mortgage broker that arranged it? Get them to call the bank and see, you know, if they can lower the penalty. And the answer was, I haven't spoken to my mortgage agent in 3 years. And I was shocked. And I'm like, you know, you took a $1.2 million mortgage and the broker doesn't even have the audacity to kind of follow up with you to see how you're doing. I mean, he got a very nice payday out of it. And it goes back to the warm calling or the cold calling. All it would have taken was a few minutes. And this person was like, do you have anyone you can recommend? I was shocked, you know, and I think that although AI does or will replace certain things, and initially on that, you're right, it comes down to numbers. But at the end of the day, trust in both sides is still important, right?
Yeah, the AI actually helps us out. And again, it wasn't a comment to, you know, discredit anybody or anything. It was more as what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And the AI with us, we actually know when the maturity is coming up, and it's diarized 90, 120 days prior. So it automatically sends them an email, or we make a phone call or whatnot. So it certainly helps us from that aspect. I think what I was trying to say more than anything is with the fact that we continue to push AI and whatnot, what are we affecting in the process there? And I know, Frank, you mentioned about the human element piece. I understand. Though, the other, I think the flip side to that, though, is, to your point, is you talked about the emotions. I'd have to disagree, because there's emotions when you're purchasing, and somebody's telling you that now you're going from 2.5 to 6%. Your payment was $2,000 and now it's $4,700. there's a lot of emotions that play into that. So we have to find a way on how to remove those emotions. Not going to remove it, but certainly find a place or something where we can accommodate now the customer maybe not being able to to afford it, and hence why I guess a real estate agent then needs to come into play, or we find some other means of being able to help them finance that. So
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to help them well before they're ready to make that decision or need to make a decision, and you can help them out. And that's how you build the trust. So, the good mortgage brokers are gonna stand out. The good realtors and the good lawyers. I mean, everybody who cares is gonna stand out, and people who don't care, they better find new jobs in AI.
To that point, I mean, the more that we're developing AI and these technologies, the easier it is for people like yourself to stand out. To write a Christmas card, a handwritten note, to wish them a happy birthday, a call. And if TD Bank was to automate a robot to call me happy birthday on my birthday, I would get pissed off. But if you were to call me, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
I think, again, it was moving forward.
Yeah.
My mom and dad are not going to get your email or your AI, and if they still have a mortgage, they have no clue. So it has to be that human element piece of either walking into the branch or somebody calling and saying, hey, your mortgage is coming up for renewal, or they're getting a paper renewal and they're looking at it. So as we move forward, absolutely. Right now, we're still having to deal with a lot of that person to person.
See, I think AI is going to end up encouraging companies like Anthony's to use email, because they can do it all automatically, and then they don't have to talk to the customer. To me, that's a drawback, because then they don't talk to the customer, and they assume that the email is going to win the day for them, and they've lost that connection, the same as in real estate. If the agent doesn't personally connect and just relies on AI to ship out these beautifully stated emails, it's just not the same.
Anybody else?
There's going to be a tendency to do it, that's all.
Right, as technology.
I just want to make one point, just that a lot of the time, I think as a realtor or mortgage broker, you're not even just helping one person, you're helping a family. So that generation to generation, this was mom and dad's mortgage broker, now it's our mortgage broker, it'll be our kids' mortgage broker. I think that's always going to kind of consistently happen if you're following up and doing what you should. So hopefully that wouldn't change.
Diana, do we have any questions on the live call? No? Okay.
On the broker pocket, just curious, what's the end vision for that platform? And, is it potentially exclusionary as well? It's great that it's a B2B tool, but, the public are getting very used to having full access to all information. And I can see some concern amongst our clients. What do you mean there's a platform that exists that I don't have access to? Isn't that prohibited? Isn't that what we worked so long to get? And now suddenly this is on scene, right? So again, what do you foresee as kind of the end game for broker pocket?
Well, just a private question first. So we're a private company. So there's a lot of private companies out there that have private data. So for the public not to have access to something is actually very typical in most industries. Does the public have same access? Sure.
Is the Toronto Real Estate Board a private?
They're a private not-for-profit.
Members?
Not-for-profit. They're not-for-profit they're not-for-profit corporation. I don't know if they're private. I don't know. I think they're technically public. I don't know. They're this quasi-corporation that's sort
I
of.
don't think they're public.
They're not public, no, but there's this quasi. They're not for profit. So they're not for profit. So for that to be a legitimate challenge, Broker Pocket would have to have such a significant hold on the Canadian real estate market, like TREB did on the Toronto real estate market, that the public is really missing out if they don't have access to this. So for us to hit those type of volume goals, we would be a multi-billion-dollar company. I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, I hope so, but that'll be Facebook and Twitter type of issues we'll be facing in court. But our goal, really, for Broker Pocket is to go Canada-wide, is to build a utility, a special tool just for agents. Because how many companies you guys can name over here are really built something in the past that's exclusively for agents that helps agents get more deals done? Very few. There's, CRMs, and there's great, organization tools, there's great utilities, but how many of them actually give the ability to, sit down with me, let me explain to you why it makes sense to sign a BRA, because I have access to properties that are only available to real estate agents. Or, before we put on MLS, Mr. Seller, wouldn't it make sense for the next 20 days while you're painting your house, while you're preparing everything else, I advertise it within a smaller pool of people that are only real estate professional, that are not window shoppers, that have legitimate buyers, bona fide buyers, that I can bring into your house before we get it onto the professional market. Would that make sense? So we're kind of building this utility that allows real estate agents to have a one-up against the public. Because right now, the public and the real estate agents almost have the exact same tools. They're going hand to hand. And a lot of agents are frustrated because of the sold data being lost, which is our own conversation itself. But I do believe there's a big pool of people, sellers, who don't want their house advertised to the entire world. They don't want to see the inside of the house. They don't want their neighbors. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe it's a commercial real estate. Maybe something's happening. They want to keep the transaction private, and they want to keep it to only sort of private sellers and private buyers. So our goal is to go Canada-wide. And the next thing that we're sort of launching is sort of profiles for all these agents. So the two issues we're trying to solve is, number one, which we're tackling right now, is the off-market listings. And the second thing is the referrals. There is no company out there that handles referrals really well. Let's say you have a client that wants to do a deal out in Manitoba. You got to literally go on realtor.ca or on Google or start calling people. We're going to have the ability to have profiles, have ratings for agents, and be able to do the deal right to their platform. Say, this agent's a specialist in Manitoba, therefore I want to refer them down there. So that's our goal, is really to provide value to the real estate community. I've done very well in real estate myself too. While I was an agent, I feel sort of embedded, and I've seen these two sort of places of opportunities, both from the referral and the off-market side, which is the reason why we built Broker Pocket.
I just want to add to that, because I compare it to other industries. We have, in lawyers in the bar, there's various organizations that share tons of information and legal documents and case law and all these things.
They're not visible to the public.
No, well, not only visible. It's not just the public. You have to be a lawyer as a prerequisite. Accountants have the same thing. Architects have the same thing. You guys are just as an established profession as they are, and that would be my argument, that you're allowed to share data within the within the association on a private group. It's a private board, and it's very similar to, I have 20 buddies that I message every Monday to play basketball. Those are the only guys that are invited. They get access to my data, to my basketball gym. Same idea, right? And so I that's what I do it. And if every other industry is allowed to do it, I can't see why real estate members wouldn't be. Not only that, it goes back to what we were saying. There is a lot of people that don't want their house advertised on public, and it's not fair not to have that option. And so, I know tons of brokerages have their own listservs, correct? I mean, everyone's nodding their head, right? I've seen it before where, agents from the same brokerage, they advertise first on there, see what kind of level of interest they get, and then based on what comes out, the only thing as a lawyer, and I think Mike would agree with me on this, is that the only concern you're going to have as an agent is what level of conflict of interest does it bring by not bringing it out to the market, one, and two, are you doing a disservice or not? The problem is the disservice part you won't know until after the fact, unfortunately. And that disservice only comes down to whether the client was unhappy with the result, and they decide to call someone like myself and say, I want to sue my agent for not getting the top dollar. And, it's funny because I get agents all the time and say, what do I do in this situation? First of all, paperwork, make sure your clients sign all authorizations, but also to give them the opportunity. So even if there is an offer through there, say, look, we can go to market, we could get more, it could be less. Giving you the information, you make the decision, one. Two, you have to act reasonably. I think, some people chase the sale, and the problem with chasing the sale is that that's how you end up with this dissatisfied client. You get one offer and you're like, this is good. We don't have to do anything else. We don't need a stage. We don't need to whatever. You got a good offer. I peg it, I was having this conversation, I peg it at $2 million and you're getting an offer for 1.9. Well, if the average market data based on your experience is 2.1, is 1.9 reasonable? Depends on who you ask. If you ask a judge, probably. If you ask the client, no, because it's money in their pocket. If you ask the neighbor, maybe they're unhappy that they didn't get the market data, right? Perception is key. Depends on which lens you're looking through, right? And I say that level of reasonableness is a line that tends to be moved in every situation, fortunately and unfortunately. And then you tie that back to human touch that all these great panelists have been talking about.
Yeah, and to further that point, we never encouraged anybody not to list on MLS. If you could list on MLS, that's our pitch. If you can't have it on MLS for whatever reason, because sell price, top dollar exposure is not the main priority of your client, then Broker Pocket is the suitable option. So we're an alternative. We're not a replacement of the MLS. The MLS is far better system for most use cases. And I think it's the default, and it does a pretty good job. We're very fortunate as agents in Canada. People forget on a worldwide level, we have the best organized real estate compared anywhere else. And kudos to Korea, kudos to a lot of the organization things. They have their faults, but they did a really good job making sure, on closing date, we get paid, making sure, the deals end up in the lawyers, the mortgage broker, everybody, the triangle works really well. You go in Croatia, 50% of deals as an agent, you don't get paid on. Because you show up at the bank on the day of closing, and you better hope the co-op agent shows up and the other lawyer, because somebody usually skips out, and guess what? You're chasing them around town for payment. Right? So that's what happens.
So we're gonna bring the Zoom to an end. We'd like to thank everybody and the panelists for being here today. We're gonna stick around in the room and talk a little bit and have a chat. If you have any questions, through the Eventbrite link, you can email us and I can connect you with various panelists. And, I'd like to thank everybody again, Frank, Eric, Gary, for coming in today, providing some great insight, Mike as well. And thanks for all that showed up, and we look forward to doing this again.
Don't give me a round of applause.